The night I lost everything started beautifully. The chandelier lights shimmered like frozen fireworks across the rooftop ballroom of the Aurelia Hotel. Music drifted through the air, soft jazz mixing with laughter and the gentle clinking of crystal glasses. It was supposed to be my dream night, the celebration of my engagement to Nathan Cross, the man I thought I would marry. My red satin dress caught the light every time I moved. Nathan had asked me to wear it, said it made me look like victory. I remember laughing when he said that. I didn't realize I was the trophy being displayed. Our guests, business associates, politicians, influencers, filled the hall with their polite smiles. Nathan thrived in the attention. He was always like that, confident, charming, the center of every room. I stood beside him, smiling for the cameras, pretending I belonged there. "Isabella," my best friend Mia whispered beside me. "I still don't understand why he chose this place. It's so public." "Because Nathan loves being seen," I said softly, adjusting the thin strap of my dress. "He thinks power is something you prove, not something you earn." Mia frowned. "And you're okay with that?" I didn't answer. I wanted to believe Nathan's ambition meant he wanted a big life, for both of us. I didn't see what was coming. Halfway through dinner, Nathan stood and tapped his glass with a spoon. The music faded. Every head turned toward us. The air suddenly felt heavy. "Everyone," he said, smiling in that polished way politicians learn, "thank you for being here to celebrate our engagement. Isabella and I have shared an incredible journey together. But sometimes..." He paused and my stomach dropped. Something in his voice had changed. "Sometimes life takes unexpected turns." A quiet laugh rippled through the guests, uncertain, polite. My pulse raced. "Nathan," I whispered, forcing a smile. "What are you?" He didn't look at me. "The truth is, Isabella and I are going separate ways." A murmur swept through the crowd. My ears rang. I thought I'd misheard him. "What?" I said quietly. "This isn't funny." He continued as if I hadn't spoken. "We've realized our paths are different. My focus now is on my campaign for state office, and I've met someone who understands that world better." The ballroom fell completely silent. From behind him stepped Charlotte Monroe, the daughter of a senator, wearing a diamond necklace that could have paid my rent for a year. Her arm slid effortlessly through Nathan's. My knees went weak. "Nathan, what are you doing?" I managed to say, voice shaking. "I'm doing what's right for both of us," he replied. His expression calm, rehearsed. "You're talented, Isabella, but you belong in your own world. Architecture, design, the creative field. Politics isn't for everyone." Someone gasped. Another guest whispered, "Is this real?" Mia stood up, fury flashing in her eyes. "You're humiliating her in front of everyone, Nathan." He didn't even glance at her. I just didn't want to lie anymore. The cameras started flashing. People were recording. I could see phones lifted like vultures circling a dying animal. I felt the blood drain from my face. "You could have told me privately," I whispered. Nathan smiled faintly. "This way is cleaner. Honest." Charlotte rested her hand on his chest and looked at me like I was something she'd stepped over. "I'm sure you'll find someone who fits you better, darling," she said sweetly. Something broke inside me. I couldn't breathe. I bent to pick up my clutch from the floor, hands trembling, and managed to say, "Keep the ring. You'll need it for your next photo op." Then I turned and walked out, or tried to. My heels clicked against the marble, echoing in the silence. I didn't look back. If I did, I would have shattered completely. The city air hit me like ice when I burst through the doors. The night was cold and sharp, my tears hot against my skin. I ran half a block before stopping near the curb, pulling off my heels, my hands shaking. That's when I heard the low, calm voice behind me. "Ms. Hart," it said. "You shouldn't be alone right now. Turn." A tall man stood beneath a street lamp, watching me. He was dressed in a black suit, the kind that looked like it was made for him, not bought off a rack. His hair was dark, his face striking in a quiet, dangerous way. All sharp lines and unreadable calm. I blinked. "Do I know you?" "No," he said simply. "But I know what just happened inside that ballroom." My throat tightened. "Congratulations. You and the rest of the internet." He took a slow step closer. "You're being followed by photographers. 2 are across the street. Another just turned the corner." I looked around and saw them. Camera flashes blinked faintly from the shadows. "Perfect," I muttered bitterly. "Let them get their money's worth." "I can make sure they don't," he said. I frowned. "Who are you?" He reached into his coat and handed me a business card. Plain white, no name. Just a phone number in elegant black print. Someone who doesn't like seeing good people torn apart by arrogant men. I should have walked away. But the paparazzi were closing in, and the exhaustion in my bones whispered just this once. His car, a sleek black sedan, pulled up at the curb. He opened the door with quiet authority. "You can come with me," he said. "Or you can be on tomorrow's headlines again." I hesitated, then got in. The interior of the car smelled faintly of leather and something darker. Smoke, maybe. The windows were tinted, the city outside turning into a blur of light. The man sat across from me, silent at first, watching. His gaze was intense but not unkind. The driver said nothing. I finally broke the silence. "So, am I supposed to thank you for kidnapping me?" He almost smiled. "If I wanted to kidnap you, you wouldn't have seen it coming." "That's comforting," I muttered, crossing my arms. He studied me for a moment, then said, "You're handling this well." I let out a humorless laugh. "You mean the public execution of my relationship?" "Oh yes, I'm thriving." He tilted his head slightly. "You were engaged to Nathan Cross." "Was," I said bitterly. "Until about 15 minutes ago, when he traded me in for a senator's daughter." He didn't flinch. "And you're an architect." I blinked. "How do you know that?" "People talk," he said simply. "Especially about talent. You designed the Hartwell project downtown." I stared. "You've read my work. I invest in construction and real estate. I notice people worth noticing." I hesitated, unsure how to respond. The man wasn't flirting. He was stating facts, like he was studying me the way a chess player studies the board. "Why do you care?" I asked quietly. "You don't even know me." "I don't need to know you," he said. "I know him. Nathan Cross." My stomach twisted. What's that supposed to mean? He looked out the window, his reflection cold and sharp. Men like him think humiliation is power. They believe breaking someone publicly makes them untouchable. I don't like men like that. The way he said it, quiet, certain, made something in me still. "So what, you're some kind of avenger for broken-hearted women?" "No," he said, turning back to me. "I'm a businessman. But sometimes business and revenge intersect." I frowned. "You still haven't told me your name." He met my eyes. "Lucian Verezzi." Froze. I'd heard that name whispered in business circles. The billionaire investor no one dared cross. Some said he had old family ties to Italian crime families. Others called him the man who owns half of Manhattan's skyline. My pulse quickened. "The Lucian Verezzi. Is there another?" he asked mildly. I pressed my hands against my knees, steadying my breath. "Why would someone like you care about someone like me?" "Because we have something in common," he said simply. "Betrayal. And opportunity." The car slowed, gliding through traffic. "Opportunity," I repeated, suspicious. He nodded toward my phone. "Check your notifications." I did, and my stomach dropped. My name was trending. Videos from the party already had millions of views. The captions burned. "Nathan Cross dumps fiancé for senator's daughter," in front of 200 guests. "Isabella Hart, gold digger or victim?" Exclusive footage, her reaction. My throat tightened. This can't be real." "It is," Lucian said calmly. "And it will get worse by morning." I'll lose everything, I whispered. My firm. My clients. My. He interrupted gently. Not everything. You still have your mind. Your talent. And maybe your pride. I looked at him, tears stinging my eyes. Pride doesn't pay rent. No, he agreed. But revenge does. Blinked. Revenge. He leaned forward slightly, his tone matter-of-fact. Nathan Cross wants to enter the political arena. Public image means everything to him. I can destroy that image completely. He stared. Why? Because it suits my interests. And because I believe in balance. His voice was calm, steady, almost soothing. He tried to humiliate you to make himself look powerful. I'd like to show him what real power looks like. I frowned. What do you get out of this? He smiled slightly. A wife. I laughed, startled. Excuse me. A temporary arrangement, he said, completely serious. 6 months. Public marriage. In return, I'll make sure Nathan's career ends before it begins. And I'll pay you $1 million. I stared at him like he'd lost his mind. You're insane. Probably, he said. But practical. You don't even know me. I know enough. You're intelligent, ambitious, and not afraid to stand your ground. You didn't run tonight. You walked out with your head high. I admire that. I shook my head, trying to process. Why me? You could have anyone. He leaned back, his gaze unreadable. Because I don't want anyone. I want someone who owes me nothing. Who understands that everything in life is a transaction. This is absurd, I whispered. You're talking about a fake marriage. I'm talking about a business arrangement, he corrected. You'd live in my penthouse, attend events, play the part. Separate rooms, no obligations. In return, you get money. And a chance to reclaim control. I stared at him, my mind spinning. The rational part of me screamed no. But the part that remembered the laughter, the cameras, the pitying stares, that part whispered why not. Lucien studied me quietly. Then slid a card across the seat. You don't have to decide now. Think about it. The car stopped in front of my apartment building. I hadn't even told him my address, but somehow he knew. As the driver opened my door, Lucien's voice followed me. Don't let tonight define you, Ms. Hart, he said. Let it remake you. I stepped out into the cold. The wind carried the city's hum. Sirens, laughter, life going on as if mine hadn't just fallen apart. I looked down at the card in my hand. One number. No name. I should have thrown it away. But I didn't. I didn't sleep for 2 nights. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Nathan's smirk, the sparkle of camera flashes, Charlotte's hand on his arm. The video played in my mind over and over. My humiliation looped on an endless reel. My phone didn't stop buzzing. Calls from coworkers. Messages from reporters. Even my boss's email came with carefully chosen words. Perhaps it's best if you take a short break until this media storm settles. Translation: you're a liability. By the 3rd morning, the sunlight through my window felt like mockery. My career. My reputation. Everything I'd built through hard work and late nights, gone in 48 hours. The business card sat on my coffee table. Plain. Innocent. I told myself I wouldn't call. That I wasn't desperate enough. But when I opened my social media again and saw another cruel headline, dumped designer cries on curb, my pride turned to fury. Picked up the card. The number had no name attached, no company, nothing. Just 10 digits that looked too calm for the chaos they promised. Dialed. The phone rang once before a low male voice answered. Address. Blinked. Excuse me. Your address, he repeated, voice firm but not unkind. Oh, but, I gave it to him. He hung up. 5 minutes later, a red sedan stopped in front of my building. No words from the driver. Just a quiet nod. I told myself I was insane as I got in. The car drove through the city in silence, taking roads I didn't recognize. My nerves buzzed with every turn until we stopped in front of what looked like an abandoned warehouse near the docks. The driver gestured toward a side door. Inside. I swallowed hard. This is how horror movies start. But I went in anyway. Inside, the world changed. The interior was sleek, steel and glass, modern furniture, and the quiet hum of expensive technology. Not a warehouse. A fortress disguised as nothing. 3 men stood in the corners of the room. Their posture was too disciplined to be random. Security, clearly. And the man walking toward me from the back office was unmistakable. Lucien Verezzi. He looked exactly as he had that night. Dark suit, unreadable expression, calm in a way that demanded control. "Ms. Hart," he said. "You came." I tried to sound casual. "Curiosity is a dangerous thing. So is pride," he said softly. "But both can be useful." I hesitated. "I haven't agreed to anything." He gestured toward the office behind him. "You're here. Which means you're considering it." Inside the office, sunlight poured through glass walls overlooking the harbor. The desk was minimal, the air smelling faintly of leather and salt. He closed the door behind us. "Sit." I stayed standing. "I want to understand what you're actually offering." He folded his hands. "A marriage contract. 6 months. Purely business. Public appearances, social events, credibility for me. Financial security and a fresh reputation for you. And when it ends, we divorce quietly. You keep the money. Half paid up front, half upon completion." I frowned. "You really think people won't notice it's fake? They'll believe what they see. People always do." He walked toward the window, watching the cargo ships below. "In my world, appearance is everything. Stability makes deals easier. A wife makes me look reliable." I crossed my arms. "You mean less like a criminal?" He glanced over his shoulder, amused. "You've been reading rumors. Are they true?" "I'm a businessman," he said simply. "Some of my businesses operate in gray areas. You'd be wise not to ask more than you can handle." "That's not comforting." "It's not meant to be." He turned back to me. "I don't need your comfort. I need your cooperation." Silence filled the room, thick and heavy. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. Finally I said, "I want terms. Written." He smiled faintly. "I expected nothing less." He handed me a folder, the contract printed neatly in black and white. I skimmed the pages. It was strangely formal. Marriage under legal jurisdiction. Financial deposit guaranteed. Separate rooms. No physical intimacy required unless mutually agreed. Confidentiality absolute. "You thought of everything," I murmured. "I plan for every outcome." I looked up at him. "And if I change my mind halfway through, you'll still be paid for the time served." His tone was practical, businesslike. "But I doubt you will." I wanted to argue, but my eyes caught one sentence. "The agreement shall remain undisclosed under penalty of breach equivalent to full repayment of all compensation." "Meaning," I said, "if I talk I pay you back $1 million. He nodded. "Exactly." I laughed nervously. "You're terrifying. You'll get used to it." He slid a pen across the table. 6 months. You get your dignity back. He gets what he deserves. I get my stability. Everyone wins. I stared at the paper. My name printed next to his. My rational mind screamed, "Don't do it." But the part of me that had watched Nathan smirk under chandelier light wanted this. Wanted power back. "Sign." Lucien took the pen, added his signature with one smooth motion, and offered his hand. "Congratulations, Mrs. Verezzi." The word hit like thunder. I shook his hand, and for the first time I saw something flicker in his expression. Not arrogance, not calculation. Something deeper. Recognition, maybe. Like he saw more in me than I saw in myself. "This feels insane," I whispered. He smiled faintly. "Good. The best decisions usually are." Lucien's penthouse was nothing like I expected. From the outside, it looked like an ordinary high-rise near Tribeca. No sign, no doorman, just clean lines and mirrored glass. But inside it was another world. The elevator opened directly into his living room. Marble floors, panoramic windows showing the city lights, and a silence so perfect it almost hummed. My small suitcase looked ridiculous against all that grandeur. Lucien's voice came from behind me. "Your room is down the hall. Second door on the right. Turn." He'd taken off his jacket, his tie loosened, the top button of his shirt undone. The change made him seem human, almost approachable. "Almost. Do you live here alone?" "Yes." "I did," he said. "Now you do too." His tone was neutral, but it wasn't lost on me that this was as personal as he'd get. The room he'd given me was bigger than my old apartment. King bed, pale furniture, a view of the Hudson River. There was even a vase of white lilies on the dresser. It was too perfect, too impersonal, like a hotel designed for ghosts. "There are clothes in the closet," Lucien said from the doorway. "Sizes should fit." Elena handled it. "Elena? My sister. You'll meet her soon." I raised an eyebrow. "And she knows about this." "She knows everything." His tone was unreadable. "She won't like you." "Why?" "Because she doesn't like anyone." That didn't exactly ease my nerves. He crossed his arms. "Dinner is at 7. Don't be late." I watched him leave. His footsteps were silent against the marble. Precise, controlled, like every part of him. When the door clicked shut, I exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. Dinner that night was quiet. Too quiet. Lucien sat at the far end of a long dining table that could have seated 10 people. 2 plates, silver cutlery, crystal glasses. Everything gleamed. I wasn't sure if we were supposed to talk. Finally I said, "You don't eat much, do you?" He glanced up, faint amusement in his eyes. "Habit. I work late." "What kind of work exactly?" He paused. "The kind that keeps the lights on." "Wow," I said dryly. "So descriptive." He smirked slightly. "You'll learn that I don't explain things unless necessary. That's one way to say you're mysterious. Another way to say I'm careful." His gaze met mine, direct, steady. "You, on the other hand, are still deciding whether you regret signing." I set down my fork. "I'm not sure yet." "Honesty," he said, nodding once. "Good. Keep that." "I prefer truth to performance." "That's ironic, considering we're literally performing a fake marriage." He leaned back. "Not fake. Legal. There's a difference." I rolled my eyes. "You're impossible." "Frequently." I almost smiled despite myself. After dinner, I wandered through the penthouse. It was more like a museum than a home. Dark wood, glass, chrome, no family photos, no warmth. Every surface was spotless. Every item placed precisely. In the study I found a wall of books, economics, architecture, history, and a single framed photograph. A woman with soft brown eyes and a smile that made my heart ache. His late wife, I realized. I heard his voice behind me. "You shouldn't be in here." Turn quickly. "I'm sorry. I was just curious," he finished for me. "Everyone is. I didn't mean to invade your privacy." He crossed the room, taking the photo and placing it face down. "Privacy doesn't exist in my world. Only secrets." "Is that what this is to you?" I asked quietly. "A secret." He studied me. "You think this is personal, isn't it?" Challenged. "You could have hired anyone to pretend to be your wife. Why me?" He didn't answer immediately. Then, "Because I saw you that night. You didn't beg. You didn't scream. You just walked away with your head up. That's rare." "That's not strength," I said softly. "That's shock." "Sometimes they look the same," he replied. We stood there in silence, the city glowing behind him. For the first time I noticed how tired his eyes looked, not just from work, but from something older, heavier. Finally he said, "Tomorrow night we'll be seen together at an event. The annual Rossetti Foundation Gala." Blinked. "A gala? As in expensive dresses, cameras, champagne?" "Yes. You'll be introduced as my wife." Froze. You mean tomorrow I'll have to face everyone again? The same people who watched my humiliation. He nodded. That's exactly why you'll go. People believe what they see, Isabella. If they see you standing beside me, confident and untouchable, your narrative changes overnight. I swallowed. And Nathan will be there. Almost certainly. The thought made my stomach twist, but also spark something deeper. A slow, dangerous satisfaction. Lucian continued. Elena has already chosen your dress. Wear what she brings. And remember, appearances are weapons. Use them. He turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. One more thing. When people look at you tomorrow, they'll wonder how you managed to catch Lucian Verezzi. Let them. I stared after him, unsure if he was warning me or complimenting me. When I finally crawled into bed, the city glittered outside my window, alive and indifferent. Somewhere across Manhattan, Nathan Cross was probably sleeping beside his perfect fiancé, unaware that the woman he'd broken in front of everyone was about to return, stronger, sharper, and no longer his. The next morning began with silence, the kind that didn't feel peaceful, only heavy. Light streamed through the tall windows of my new bedroom, painting soft lines across the cream sheets. For a moment I forgot where I was. Then I remembered. Lucian Verezzi's penthouse. Contract wife. 6 months. The scent of coffee drifted faintly through the hallway. I followed it, barefoot, to the open kitchen where Lucian stood already dressed. Dark shirt, black slacks, tie loosened. He looked like he'd been awake for hours. He glanced up briefly. Morning. I hesitated. Do you always wake up this early? I don't sleep much. He handed me a cup of coffee without asking how I took it. It was perfect, strong, slightly bitter, exactly right. Your schedule will adjust, he added. My schedule. You'll be accompanied by security if you leave this building. No solo outings. You'll receive a list of events where we'll appear together. And someone from my staff will coordinate your wardrobe. I stared at him over the rim of my cup. You really thought of everything. He met my gaze. Control is safety, Isabella. Chaos gets people killed. The words were simple, but there was a weight behind them. Something painful, something personal. I set down the cup. You said I'd have freedom. He nodded. Within reason. Freedom doesn't mean carelessness. I'm not a child. Then don't act like one. The quiet crackled between us. I hated how calm he sounded, how sure. It made me feel like an uninvited guest in my own life. Finally I said, you keep talking like the world's out to get you. He gave a small, humorless smile. It usually is. The elevator chimed. A woman stepped out, carrying a garment bag. Tall, mid-30s, sharply dressed in gray. Her hair twisted into a smooth bun. She walked with confidence that felt almost predatory. She didn't knock. She didn't have to. Elena, Lucian said simply. So this was his sister. Her gaze swept over me, cool and assessing. So this is her, she said, like she was examining an art piece she hadn't decided to like yet. You're taller than I expected. I straightened. And you're exactly as intimidating as I expected. Her lips twitched. Good answer. She hung the garment bag on a chair and unzipped it. Inside was a gown, dark emerald silk, simple yet breathtaking. You'll wear this tonight. Tonight. The Rossetti Foundation Gala, Lucian said. Our first public appearance. Blinked. Already. Elena gave a soft, cutting laugh. You sound surprised, Mrs. Verezzi. Did you think my brother was paying you $1 million to stay hidden? Stop calling me that, I said quietly. We both know this isn't a real marriage. Lucian's voice softened slightly. It is on paper. That's enough. Elena's eyes flicked between us. You two will need to look convincing. People at the gala are experts at smelling lies. Maybe they'll smell yours, I said before I could stop myself. Her expression sharpened, but Lucian intervened. Enough. Elena arched an eyebrow but didn't argue. Hair and makeup team will arrive at 6. I expect you ready by 7. Try not to trip in front of the cameras. Then she was gone as quickly as she'd arrived. When the elevator doors closed, I let out a long breath. She hates me. She doesn't hate you, Lucien said, walking back to his desk. She hates change. Same thing. He didn't respond, just opened his laptop. Conversation over. I spent the afternoon exploring the penthouse. It was beautiful, yes, but sterile. No warmth, no color. Every object seemed chosen to look expensive, not lived in. Even the air felt filtered. There were no personal items. No photos except one in his study, the one of his late wife that he kept face down. I tried not to think about it. Tried not to wonder what she'd been like, or if I was just a shadow filling her space. By evening, a small army of stylists transformed the apartment into a backstage dressing room. Hair, makeup, jewelry, perfume. They spoke in quick, efficient whispers as they pinned my hair into soft waves and brushed golden shimmer across my eyelids. When I stepped into the green silk gown, it felt like armor. Lucien appeared at the doorway, already in his tuxedo. The sight made me stop breathing for a second. He was elegance and danger wrapped in black and white, a man carved from control. His eyes swept over me once, slowly, then returned to mine. Perfect. I laughed nervously. You make it sound like a business report. It is, he said simply. Presentation matters. I stared at him. You're impossible. And you're late, he replied, glancing at his watch. Let's go. As we entered the elevator, I caught our reflection in the mirrored walls. Me in emerald silk, him in tailored black. We looked like power itself. But under my calm smile, my stomach twisted. I was walking straight into the same kind of room that had destroyed me. The Rossetti Foundation Gala was held at the Metropolitan Museum. An ocean of chandeliers, champagne, and money. Cars lined the steps like jewels on display. The night air electric with flash photography. When our car stopped at the entrance, my pulse was pounding. Lucien opened the door and held out his hand. Ready? No, I whispered. But I'm doing it anyway. Good answer. His mouth curved slightly. Smile, Mrs. Verezzi. The moment my heels touched the red carpet, the lights exploded. Camera flashes, voices shouting questions. Mr. Verezzi. Who's your date? Is it true you recently married? Mrs. Verezzi, how did you meet your husband? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Lucien's hand slid firmly around my waist, guiding me through the chaos. His body a shield of calm authority. The warmth of his touch burned through the silk like a brand. Inside, the noise faded into soft music and murmured greetings. The elite of New York, business tycoons, senators, heirs, filled the grand hall like a living magazine cover. And there, near the center of it all, stood Nathan Cross and Charlotte Monroe. Charlotte sparkled in a silver gown. Nathan looked smug, confident, until his eyes found mine. His expression shifted from disbelief to shock. I let him look. Lucien leaned close, his voice low against my ear. Shall we? Do I have a choice? Not tonight. We walked straight toward them. Nathan recovered quickly, adjusting his tie, forcing a politician's smile. Isabella, he said smoothly. What a surprise. Good evening, Nathan, I replied, my voice even. Charlotte. Charlotte's eyes narrowed. You look well, she said, though the way her gaze flicked to Lucien's hand on my waist told me she meant the opposite. Lucien's presence was like gravity. His calm smile didn't reach his eyes. You must be the ex-fiancé, he said pleasantly. I've heard so much about you. Nathan froze. And you are? Lucien Verezzi, he said simply. Recognition hit like a spark. Nathan's smile faltered. Ah, the investor. The husband, Lucien corrected. Gasps whispered through nearby guests. The word hung in the air. Deliberate, unmistakable. Charlotte's face paled. Husband. You can't be serious. The engagement just ended. 3 days ago, Lucien said. Plenty of time. Nathan cleared his throat, clearly floundering. That seems fast. Sometimes, Lucien said softly, you recognize value immediately. It's called instinct. Charlotte shifted uncomfortably. Well, congratulations, I suppose. I smiled sweetly. Thank you, Charlotte. I wish you the same, though you already seem to have everything you wanted. Her jaw tightened. Enjoy your evening. Oh, I intend to, I said. Lucien's hand pressed slightly against my waist. Subtle, protective. His tone, however, was velvet-wrapped steel. I appreciate your well wishes, he said. But my wife doesn't need validation from anyone. That shut them up. As we moved away, I exhaled, realizing I'd been holding my breath. That, Lucien murmured, was beautifully executed. I thought you didn't approve of theatrics. I said I don't perform them. I never said I don't enjoy watching someone else do it well. I laughed softly. So what now? Now, he said, accepting 2 glasses of champagne from a waiter, we make them believe this marriage is real. The next hour blurred into a parade of introductions and handshakes. Everyone wanted to meet Mrs. Verezzi. The men were polite. The women were curious. Every smile carried a question. How did she land him? Lucien played the role perfectly. His hand always at my back, his tone smooth. His attention fixed on me like I was the only person in the room. It was all an act. I knew it. But it felt dangerously real. Under the soft golden lights, I caught him studying me more than once. Not like a possession but like a puzzle. When the music slowed, a waltz began. Couples drifted toward the dance floor. Lucien turned to me. Dance. I haven't danced in years. Then follow my lead. He guided me with practiced ease, his hand firm against my back, his movements effortless. The world around us blurred. For a few stolen minutes I forgot the cameras, the contract, the lies. You're shaking, he murmured. I'm just not used to this. To what? Being looked at like I matter. He didn't answer right away. Then he said quietly, You've always mattered. He just couldn't see it. Something caught in my chest, an ache I didn't expect. When the song ended, he didn't let go immediately. Our eyes met, and for the first time I saw something unguarded flicker there. Not calculation, not power, something human. He cleared his throat and stepped back. You did well tonight. So did you, I said. I almost believed you cared. He smiled faintly. Care is expensive, Isabella. I prefer investments. And am I an investment? He glanced down at me, eyes dark and unreadable. You might be my most dangerous one. Before I could answer, Elena appeared at his side, her expression sharp. Lucien, we have a situation. His entire demeanor shifted. The warmth vanished, replaced by the cold efficiency I'd seen before. What kind? Roman Serrano's people are here. They brought architectural plans for a project in Red Hook. Lucien's jaw tightened. Franco's old territory, he muttered. They're moving fast. What does that mean? Yes. He looked at me, already halfway back into his world. It means business. Stay here. Before I could protest, he was gone, disappearing into the glittering crowd with Elena. I stood alone among the chandeliers, champagne still cold in my hand, realizing for the first time that behind every polished smile in this room was a secret, and that my new husband was keeping more than anyone. The next morning, the city woke up to new headlines. Lucien Verezzi debuts his wife at the Rossetti Gala. Nathan Cross silenced by power couple. Every photo showed me smiling beside Lucien, his hand resting lightly on my waist. To the world we looked untouchable. To me it still felt unreal. I sat at the marble kitchen counter, scrolling through the news as sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows. I could hear Lucien talking quietly on the phone in his office, voice low, controlled. When he finally appeared, he was already dressed in another perfectly fitted suit. You handled yourself well last night, he said. I didn't faint, if that's what you mean. He almost smiled. That's more than most people could manage. I set my phone down. You didn't tell me Nathan and Charlotte would be there. I assumed you expected it. I did, I said softly. But expecting it doesn't make it easier. He studied me for a moment, then said, You faced them. You didn't break. That's what matters. I wanted to ask what had happened after Elena pulled him away, but I could tell from his expression that whatever business it was, I wasn't supposed to know. Lucian, I said. Who's Roman Serrano? The question made him pause. Where did you hear that name? Elena said it. At the gala. He straightened. He's a competitor. That's a very short answer. It's the only one you need. I frowned. You do realize that when you say things like that, you make me want to ask more questions? He looked at me evenly. Curiosity is dangerous. So you've said, I replied. But you married an architect, not a statue. For the first time that morning, something like amusement flickered across his face. Noted. He gathered his papers. I have meetings downtown. You'll stay here today. Why? Can go out. Get some air. Not without security. I don't need protection, Lucian. He met my gaze, eyes turning serious. Everyone needs protection, Isabella. They just don't realize it until it's too late. Then he was gone, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the echo of his words. By afternoon I was restless. The penthouse was beautiful but too quiet, too polished. I wandered through the rooms until I found myself in his study again. The photograph of the woman, his late wife, was back on the shelf, upright this time. I stared at it for a long moment. She looked gentle, kind. The opposite of everything this place represented. My phone buzzed with a message. Unknown number. Curiosity can build or destroy. Which side are you on? Froze. Before I could reply, another message followed. If you want answers, go to Verezzi Industries. 52nd floor. 3 p.m. I hesitated only a moment before grabbing my coat. The building was a monument of glass and steel, the kind of tower that scraped the sky. The security guards recognized my name and waved me through, though one of them looked uncertain, like he wanted to call someone first. The elevator shot up in silence. When the doors opened, I stepped into a world of glass offices and quiet efficiency. Assistants moved like ghosts between desks, heads down. At the far end of the corridor, Lucian's name gleamed in silver on a frosted door. Pushed it open. The office was huge, overlooking the river. Behind the desk sat Elena. She didn't look surprised to see me. Bold move, she said, setting down her pen. He didn't send for you. I wanted to understand what's really happening here. Her smile was small and sharp. You're already involved more than you realize. The less you know, the safer you'll be. That's exactly what he says. Because it's true. I crossed my arms. What are you afraid I'll find out? That he's running illegal deals. That your family's still tied to the old syndicates. Her expression didn't change, but the air seemed to grow colder. Careful, Isabella. I'm not your enemy, I said quietly. But if I'm supposed to be part of this world for 6 months, I deserve to know what I'm part of. Elena studied me, then sighed. You're stubborn. He likes that, though he'll never admit it. She stood, walked to the window. Roman Serrano isn't just a competitor. He's a threat. He controls docks, shipping routes, and politicians. He wants what Lucian has. The legitimate front, the clean image. So last night he sent a message. He's expanding. The Red Hook project was ours. I tried to process. You're saying he's using construction to hide something else. She didn't answer, which was enough of an answer. You should leave, she said finally. Before Lucian finds you here. But it was too late. The door opened. Lucian stood there, cold fury written across his face. What are you doing here? He asked, voice low. I wanted to understand what you're hiding, I said. His jaw tightened. Out! Lucien! Now! Elena didn't interfere. I walked past him, heart pounding, the sound of his footsteps following me into the elevator. He waited until the doors closed before speaking. You don't walk into my offices without permission. Ever. I'm not your employee. No, he said softly. You're my wife, which means your mistakes are mine. Do you understand what that costs me? His anger wasn't loud, but it was the kind that cut deeper. I was just trying to help, I said, voice shaking. Help! He laughed once, bitterly. Do you even know what that word means in my world? Help gets people killed. The elevator reached the ground floor. He stepped out first, then turned back. You wanted to see what you married into, Isabella. Congratulations. Now you've seen it. He walked away, leaving me standing there in the echo of my own regret. That night, the rain started early, soft at first, then heavier, blurring the city lights outside the penthouse windows. Lucien hadn't come home yet. I sat curled on the couch, staring at the television without hearing it, replaying his words. Help gets people killed. He wasn't exaggerating. I could still see that flicker of fear behind his anger, the kind that comes from memory, not imagination. Around midnight, the elevator finally chimed. He stepped in, jacket soaked, tie gone, hair damp from the rain. He looked exhausted, not just from work, but from holding the world up by its throat. You're still awake, he said. I couldn't sleep. He poured himself a drink, amber liquid catching the light. For a while, neither of us spoke. The storm outside filled the silence. Finally, I said, I didn't mean to make things harder for you. He didn't look at me. You think this is about business. Isn't it always? He turned then, eyes dark. This is about survival. You think you can walk into that office, ask questions and walk away untouched? Serrano has people everywhere. If he suspects you know something, you become leverage. I swallowed. You think he'd come after me? He gave a humorless smile. He's come after worse for less. I stood, moving closer. Then teach me how to survive it. Don't lock me out. He looked at me like he was trying to decide whether I was brave or foolish. You don't understand what you're asking. I'm trying to understand you, I said quietly. But every time I get close, you shut me out. He set the glass down with a sharp clink. Because there's nothing here for you to understand. That's not true. Isabella. Tell me about her, I said suddenly. The woman in the photograph. He went still. For a long time he didn't move, didn't breathe. Then he said softly, her name was Clara. She died because of me. The words landed heavy between us. How? She was in the wrong place at the wrong time, he said, voice flat. A deal went bad. Car bomb meant for me. She didn't make it. My heart ached at the calm way he said it, as if grief had turned to stone long ago. I'm sorry, I whispered. He poured another drink, his hands steady. I promised myself I'd never let someone close again. Closeness makes you weak. Weakness gets you killed. That's not weakness, I said. That's being human. He looked up sharply. Human doesn't survive in my world. I stepped closer until I could see the faint lines of exhaustion around his eyes. Then maybe your world needs to change. For a moment neither of us spoke. The rain hammered against the windows. His eyes searched mine. A storm meeting another. You should go to bed, he said finally. I'm not a child, Lucien. No, he murmured. You're a reminder. Of what? He didn't answer, but his voice was softer when he finally said, You have fire, Isabella. Don't let it burn you. He walked past me, stopping at the edge of the hall. Elena will brief you tomorrow. You'll be attending a charity dinner next week. Stay close to her. And stop trying to save me. I'm not trying to save you, I said quietly. I'm trying to understand why you stopped saving yourself. He froze for a heartbeat, then kept walking. Later that night I couldn't sleep. I stood by the window, watching the rain streak down the glass, My reflection faint against the skyline. I'd entered his world out of revenge. A deal made in anger. But now it felt like something else. A story I hadn't agreed to but couldn't walk away from. Lucien was a man built on secrets. A fortress made of silence. Yet for the first time I'd seen the cracks in the walls, the grief, the guilt, the loneliness that power couldn't erase. And I realized something that terrified me more than his enemies ever could. I was starting to care. The next few days felt almost peaceful on the surface. Lucien went to meetings, I stayed home sketching design ideas that no one would see. And Elena made sure every minute of my time was scheduled. But beneath that calm, tension moved like a current. Something in Lucien's voice had changed. Quieter, sharper, as if he were listening for threats that hadn't arrived yet. On Thursday morning a courier delivered a package addressed to Mrs. Verezzi. It was heavy, wrapped in plain brown paper. The doorman said it came from a florist downtown. Inside was a small white box tied with a black ribbon. No flowers. No note. Just a single red USB drive. I turned it over in my hands, frowning. The drive was engraved with one word. Curiosity. My pulse quickened. I knew better than to open it, but curiosity had ruined better people than me. I plugged it into my laptop. The screen went black, then a video began to play. First just static. Then a man's voice. Distorted, smooth, deliberate. Isabella Hart. The architect who thinks she can play in a world she doesn't understand. Tell your husband to stay out of Red Hook. Next time we don't send warnings. The video ended with a single image. A map of the city marked with an X over a warehouse near the docks. The screen went dark again. I sat frozen. The laptop's hum filled the silence, and I realized my hands were shaking. A sound behind me made me jump. Lucien's voice, low and cold. Where did you get that? He was standing in the doorway, jaw tight, eyes like knives. I hadn't even heard the elevator. Someone delivered it, I said. It's from Serrano, isn't it? He crossed the room in 3 strides and yanked the USB from the port. Did you watch it? I hesitated. Yes. He swore under his breath, then snapped the drive in half with one hand. Plastic and metal cracked. Next time you bring it to me. I just wanted to understand, he finished, voice low but dangerous. You keep saying that word like it's a shield. In my world, understanding gets you buried. His anger wasn't loud, but it made the air heavy. For the first time I realized how real his fear for me was. I didn't know, I said quietly. He exhaled, rubbing his temple. That's the problem. You don't know what these people are capable of. I'm not a liability, I said. I can handle myself. You shouldn't have to, he said sharply. Then softer. I made a mistake bringing you into this. I looked at him. You didn't bring me here. I signed that contract. He studied me for a long moment. Then he said, pack a bag. What? You're leaving for a few days. My house in Montauk. Security will take you there. No arguments. You're sending me away. I'm keeping you alive. Something inside me twisted. You can't just decide. I can, he said, voice like steel. And I will. The argument ended there. Within an hour, I was in a black SUV headed east, the skyline fading behind me. I told myself it was temporary, that he was just being careful, but deep down it felt like exile. The house in Montauk sat on a cliff above the sea. Modern, glass walls facing the endless gray water. It was beautiful and lonely like him. 2 security guards patrolled outside, and one stayed inside, silent as a shadow. I tried to sketch, tried to read, but the sound of the waves only reminded me how far away I was from answers. On the second night I couldn't stand it anymore. I called Lucien. He answered on the first ring. Are you safe? I'm safe, I said. Bored out of my mind but safe. Did you find out who sent the message? I know, he said. Roman Serrano. He's been trying to bait me for months. Why now? Because your leverage, he said. Hurting you would hurt me. I swallowed. Would it? Silence stretched over the line. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower. It would. We didn't talk for long after that, but when I hung up, I couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd said it. Quiet, certain, as if the truth had slipped out by accident. The next morning I woke to the smell of smoke. Not from the fireplace outside. I ran to the balcony. Down the hill, a small shed near the gate was burning, orange flames twisting in the wind. The guard shouted into his radio. By the time the fire truck arrived, the building was gone. They said it was an electrical short. But I saw the dark spray paint on the wall before the flames reached it. 3 letters scrawled in red. R6. Roman Serrano. By evening, Lucien's car was already on its way. He didn't speak when he arrived, just pulled me into the car and told the driver to go. The muscles in his jaw were tight the whole ride back. When we reached the city, he finally said, "You were right. You're not a liability. You're a target." I looked at him. Then stop sending me away. He met my gaze, tired and angry and something else. "Fine," he said. "You stay. But from now on you do what I say. Always. Always." The tension between us didn't fade. It shifted, heavier, charged. He was different after Montauk, more guarded and more present at the same time, as if he'd decided that watching me was the only way to keep me safe. We ate breakfast together every morning now. He read the paper, I pretended to. Sometimes I caught him looking at me over the top edge of it, studying, calculating. One morning I said, "You don't trust anyone, do you?" He didn't look up. "Trust is a luxury. You have money. You could afford it." He folded the paper neatly. "Money buys silence, not loyalty. What about love?" The word felt too fragile in that marble kitchen. His eyes lifted to mine. "Love gets people killed." The way he said it left no space for argument. Still, I couldn't stop myself. "Or it saves them." He stood, ending the conversation. "Don't romanticize survival, Isabella." But the next night he stayed home. No meetings, no phone calls. He cooked dinner, pasta surprisingly good. When I asked where he learned, he said, "Clara liked Italian." Then he changed the subject. We ate in silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. When the lights of the city flickered across the windows, he said quietly, "After she died, I promised I wouldn't let anyone close enough to become a weapon against me. Then why marry me at all? I thought I could control it," he said. Then, with a small, almost reluctant smile, "I was wrong. Something unspoken passed between us, a warmth neither of us wanted to name." He looked away first. 2 days later, I joined him on a site visit downtown. It was supposed to be safe, broad daylight surrounded by workers. But danger doesn't always arrive with a warning. Lucien was talking to a contractor when a sound split the air. A sharp crack like fireworks. People screamed. Someone shouted, "Gun!" Lucien grabbed my arm and pulled me behind a concrete pillar as another shot echoed. His security team moved fast, drawing weapons, scanning rooftops. Within minutes it was over. The shooter was gone. No one hurt. But the message was clear. Lucien turned to me, fury and fear mixing in his eyes. "This ends tonight." He stormed toward the car, phone already to his ear. "Elena, pull everything we have on Serrano. I don't care what it costs." Followed heart racing. "Lucien." He spun on me. "Do you understand what would have happened if you'd taken one more step? I'm fine. You're not fine." His voice broke, loud enough to echo off the glass walls. "Do you think I could live through that again?" The silence after those words was worse than the gunfire. He looked away, running a hand through his hair, trying to catch his breath. "I lost one woman because of me. I won't lose another." I stepped closer. "You don't get to decide who I am to you, Lucien." He met my eyes. "Then decide for me." "I already did," I said softly. "I stayed." He stared at me like he wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. Finally he whispered, "You're impossible. You keep saying that." "Because it's true." He sighed, shoulders dropping. Come on. We're going home. That night, the city outside the penthouse glowed in gold and gray. Lucien stood by the window, hands in his pockets, watching the lights. I joined him, the air between us electric. They'll come again, he said. They always do. Then we'll be ready. He looked at me, a faint smile ghosting his lips. You're not afraid anymore. I was never afraid of them, I said. I was afraid of you. He blinked. Why? Because you hide behind walls even when no one's attacking you. His gaze softened, the edges of his expression finally unguarded. I built those walls to survive. And you will, I said. But maybe you don't have to do it alone. For a long moment he said nothing. Then quietly, you shouldn't care about me. Too late. He closed his eyes as if fighting himself. When he spoke again, his voice was almost a whisper. I can't lose anyone else. Then stop pushing people away. The silence stretched until he finally reached out, his fingers brushing mine. A small gesture, tentative but real, the kind that says more than any promise. Outside, thunder rolled somewhere over the river. He didn't pull away. Neither did I. We stood like that for a long time. Two people who weren't supposed to feel anything at all, standing in the middle of a life built on lies, beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, something real could survive there. The following week, the city seemed to breathe differently. Too still, like it was waiting. Lucien worked longer hours, his calls more frequent. His eyes darker every time he returned home. Serrano's name was never spoken, but it hung over us like fog. One evening, while Lucien was out, I was sitting in the library reviewing architectural sketches. It was a habit I'd returned to, a way to feel normal. My designs were cleaner now, sharper, like I'd absorbed some of Lucien's discipline. As I flipped through my sketches, Elena appeared at the door. You're busy. Just trying to stay useful. She stepped inside, her heels soft against the rug. Lucien's distracted. That's when he makes mistakes. Then maybe he needs help. She crossed her arms. He doesn't want help. He wants control. And you? What do you want? Her eyes softened for the first time. For him to stop destroying himself. She paused, then said, You're not like her. And blinked. His late wife. Elena nodded. Clara was quiet, gentle. You're not. Is that a compliment? An observation? She hesitated. Be careful, Isabella. You think you're building something stable, but everything around him cracks eventually. Before I could respond, her phone buzzed. She read the message, frowned and muttered. Unbelievable. What happened? Documents just leaked from one of our subsidiaries, she said. Financials for a Red Hook project, one of Serrano's fronts. My stomach twisted. Leaked. How? She didn't answer, already walking out. Something about her tone stayed with me. After she left, I opened my laptop and searched the company's public filings. It didn't take long to find it. Blueprints, contracts, even engineering notes from Heart Design Studio. My old company. My hands went cold. The files weren't just from my portfolio. They were projects I'd personally designed for a city redevelopment bid 2 years ago. I recognized every line, every detail. Only someone with access to my old computer could have them. Only one person fit that description. Nathan. The room swayed. I grabbed my phone, dialing Lucien, but it went straight to voicemail. Called again, nothing. I grabbed my coat and headed for his downtown office. The night air was sharp and cold, my breath fogging as I stepped out of the car. The building's security guards recognized me and let me through, but their eyes were wary. Lucien's door was open. He was pacing, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and furious. I don't care what it costs, trace the leak. I want names. When he saw me, he ended the call abruptly. What are you doing here? Nathan, I said, out of breath. He's the leak. He's working with Serrano. Lucien's expression froze. How do you know that? I handed him my tablet. Those plans, they're mine. From before we ever met. He must have stolen them from my files after the breakup. He's feeding Serrano information. Lucien's jaw tightened. That son of a... He stopped himself, exhaling through his nose. Then he turned to Elena, who had followed me in. Confirm it. She nodded, already typing on her phone. If you're right, this changes everything. Lucien looked at me. You just became the center of a war, Isabella. I didn't choose it. Neither did I, he said quietly. But here we are. He walked to his desk, poured 2 glasses of whiskey, and handed me one. If Serrano's using Nathan, it means he's desperate. He's trying to make me react. Are you going to? Yes. He met my gaze. I'm going to end it. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Nathan's face at the gala. The smug smile, the certainty he'd won. He'd used my work, my trust, to hurt the one man who didn't deserve it. I wanted to scream, but instead I promised myself something. If this was the world I'd stepped into, I wasn't going to be anyone's pawn again. The next morning Lucien called a meeting. His voice was calm but final. We make a move tonight. Elena frowned. You're walking into a trap. I'm setting one, he said. We'll stage a deal. Invite Serrano's people. Let them believe they've cornered me. And if Nathan shows up, yes. Lucien's eyes were cold. Then I'll let him know what betrayal costs. Something inside me trembled. Not fear exactly, but the weight of knowing how far he was willing to go. The night smelled like rain and gasoline. The meeting was staged at one of Lucien's waterfront warehouses. Steel, shadows, and the distant hum of the city. It was past midnight when we arrived. Elena stayed outside, coordinating security. Lucien and I walked together down the echoing corridor, our footsteps the only sound. He looked calm, too calm. When this starts, stay behind me. I'm not leaving you alone with them. This isn't up for discussion. I'm not your employee, I shot back. We've been over this. He stopped, turning to face me. No, you're my wife. And that means if anything happens to you. What? Cut in. You'll lose control again. His jaw clenched. For a second the mask cracked. Yes. Before I could respond, the heavy door ahead opened. 5 men entered, Serrano's representatives. One of them was Nathan. My breath caught. He looked different. Tired, thinner, guilt buried under arrogance. Isabella, he said almost warmly. You look incredible. Save it, I said coldly. You stole from me. He shrugged. I borrowed. It's not like you were using those designs. Lucien stepped forward, voice quiet but deadly. You made a mistake, Mr. Cross. Nathan laughed nervously. You think you can scare me, Verezzi? I have friends in high places. I have graves in higher ones, Lucien replied. The words hung in the air like smoke. Nathan's smile faltered. You wouldn't. Try me. Before Nathan could respond, another door opened, and Roman Serrano himself walked in. He was broad-shouldered, his suit immaculate, his smile too wide. Lucien Verezzi. Finally. Lucien's expression didn't change. You should have stayed in your lane. Your lane's in my way, Serrano said, circling him. You hide behind your towers and charities, pretending you're clean. But we both know dirt doesn't wash off. He turned his gaze to me. And this must be the famous wife. Beautiful. Brave. A shame she got dragged into this. Lucien moved before I could blink, grabbing Serrano by the collar, slamming him against a steel pillar. His voice dropped to a low growl. You say her name again, and you'll never speak another word. Serrano laughed, even as Lucien's grip tightened. Touchy. She must be special. Lucien's men appeared from the shadows, weapons ready. So did Serrano's. The air thickened with tension, a heartbeat away from violence. Then a phone buzzed. Nathan flinched, pulling it from his pocket, but Lucien's guard was faster. He snatched it, handed it to Lucien. Lucien looked at the screen and smiled. You should have been more careful. What? Nathan demanded. Lucien turned the phone toward him. A live feed played. Serrano's private accountant speaking to federal agents. His signature on a confession. You're finished, Lucien said. Both of you. Serrano's smile died. You think this ends with a signature? I think it ends with a choice, Lucien said. You surrender or you vanish. The gunfire started before he finished the sentence. Chaos exploded, shouts, bullets ricocheting off metal, the stench of gunpowder filling the air. Lucien pushed me behind a crate, shielding me with his body as glass shattered above us. Elena! He shouted into his comm, exit now. Already moving, came her voice through the static. When the shooting stopped, Serrano was gone. So was Nathan. Lucien stood, eyes scanning the wreckage. One of his men handed him Serrano's phone, recovered from the floor. He looked at the messages, then cursed under his breath. They knew we were coming. Someone tipped them off. He frowned. Who? He didn't answer, just looked toward the door. We'll find out. Outside, the night air was cold and sharp. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Lucien's security team was already loading the wounded into cars. He was covered in dust, his shirt torn, a line of blood on his arm. You're hurt, I said. It's nothing. Don't say that, I snapped, grabbing his wrist. You're bleeding. He stared at me, almost surprised by my anger. You're shaking. So are you, I said. You just hide it better. His hand came up, almost unconsciously, brushing a strand of hair from my face. The gesture was small, gentle, completely at odds with the world burning around us. You could have died tonight, he said quietly. So could you. He exhaled, eyes dark with something I couldn't name. That's different. No, Lucien, I said. It's not. For a long moment, the only sound was the wail of sirens fading into the distance. Then he said softly, You're stronger than I thought. I had to be, I replied. Men like Nathan taught me that. He looked at me for a long time before saying, Then maybe we're not so different after all. The first hint of dawn broke over the water, painting the sky in bruised shades of purple and gold. He turned to his men, issuing quiet orders, then to me. It's over for now. You should rest. But even as he said it, we both knew it wasn't over. Not while Serrano was alive. Not while the ghosts of our pasts were still watching. As we drove back through the waking city, I stared out the window, thinking of Nathan's face. His fear when Lucien showed him that video feed. He'd looked cornered, desperate. Which meant he wasn't finished either. The war had only just begun. By the time the sun climbed over the East River, the warehouse fight felt like a nightmare that hadn't ended. Lucien's team had cleaned up what they could, but Serrano had escaped, and Nathan had vanished again. The penthouse was strangely quiet when we got back. The morning news showed only smoke rising from the docks. The police called it an industrial accident. The city had no idea how close it had come to a war. Lucien sat at the long dining table, still in the same torn shirt, staring at the phone Serrano had dropped. I poured coffee, set one cup beside him and waited. He finally spoke. Someone in my inner circle gave them our location. Someone you trust. The list is short, he said. Elena, Marco, or me. And I know it wasn't me. Your sister. He shook his head. Elena would never side with Serrano. She hates him more than I do. Then Marco, I said quietly. He didn't answer, but I saw the flicker in his eyes. Marco De Luca had been with Lucien for years, the man who handled his security, who never spoke out of turn, who was always there. Too loyal, maybe. Lucien's phone buzzed again. Elena's voice came through the speaker. I checked the feeds from last night. One of the surveillance cameras went offline 10 minutes before the ambush. Which one? North Gate, she said. Marco's post. Lucien's face hardened. Bring him in. Marco arrived an hour later, looking tired but calm. You wanted to see me. Lucien poured him a drink, motioning for him to sit. I stayed by the window, watching the sky darken again as clouds rolled in. We had an incident last night, Lucien said. Someone warned Serrano. Marco frowned. You think it was me? I think you were the only one near that gate. Marco's mouth tightened. I don't betray you. Then explain the missing feed. He shifted, eyes darting toward the floor. Camera malfunction maybe. Those systems are old. They were upgraded last month, Lucien said. You signed the receipt. The silence that followed was sharp as broken glass. I stepped closer. Why? Yes. Why would you sell us out? Marco's jaw clenched. You think I did this for money? Lucien's voice dropped lower. Then what? For family, Marco said, almost shouting now. Serrano's men had my brother. They said they'd kill him if I didn't tell them where you'd be. I tried to warn you, but... You warned no one, Lucien snapped. Marco's shoulders sagged. Because I knew you'd rather my brother die than lose control of a meeting. Lucien stood, hands flat on the table. You're right. The room went still. Then softer he added. But I would have saved him anyway. For a moment, the anger drained out of both men. Marco looked at Lucien, eyes wet. I didn't know that. I know, Lucien said quietly. That's why you're still breathing. He turned to his guards. Take him to Elena. We'll decide what happens next. When the door closed, Lucien sank into his chair, exhausted. I sat across from him. You let him go. Yes. For now. But if Serrano uses him again. He didn't finish. He didn't have to. I reached for his hand. You can't keep losing people, Lucien. You'll destroy yourself. He looked at me, eyes softening. Maybe I already have. That evening, Elena returned with an update. Marco confessed everything. Serrano promised to free his brother in exchange for last night's location. The brother's already dead. Lucien's face stayed unreadable, but I saw the muscle twitch in his jaw. Where is Serrano now? Moving between safe houses, Elena said. We traced one shipment from his docks to a warehouse in Jersey. He'll be there tonight. Lucien nodded slowly. Then tonight ends this. Understood. You're going after him. He turned toward me. We're going after him. Excuse me. You've seen more of his plans than anyone else. He used your designs to hide his smuggling routes. You can spot what we can't. I'm not trained for. You're smart, he said. And I trust you. That was the first time he'd ever said those words to me. I took a deep breath. Then let's finish it. The rain started before sunset, drumming against the car windows as we drove toward the river. The city lights blurred through the downpour. Lucien sat beside me, silent, his expression carved from stone. Elena's voice came through the earpiece. Serrano's men are inside the warehouse. About 10 of them. No sign of Serrano himself yet. Lucien replied. We move when I say. Not before. The car stopped a block away. We got out, the cold hitting like a slap. I pulled the hood of my jacket up, rain soaking through almost instantly. The smell of oil and salt filled the air. Lucien handed me a small tablet showing the building's blueprints. My own designs, twisted by Serrano's modifications. Show me where he'd hide. I scanned the layout quickly. He reinforced this section here, I said, pointing to a shaded area near the back. There's a false wall, storage room behind it. Probably his office. Lucien nodded. Stay close to me. We moved through the shadows, slipping inside through a side door. The air smelled of rust and smoke. Somewhere deeper in the building, men were talking. Lucien signaled to his team. They spread out, silent, weapons drawn. We crept forward until we reached the false wall I'd marked. Lucien pressed his hand against the metal. You were right. He pulled a lever hidden behind a crate. The panel slid open, revealing a smaller room lit by a single hanging bulb. At the desk sat Serrano. He didn't look surprised. "You really should have stayed in your tower, Verezzi." Lucian stepped inside, gun steady in his hand. "And missed the chance to watch you fall." Serrano smirked. "Fall? You think you've won? You forget. I still have friends on every payroll in this city." "Not anymore," Lucian said. "The FBI raided your docs an hour ago. Your accounts are frozen." Serrano's smile faded. "You lie." Lucian tossed a tablet onto the desk, its screen showing live news. Federal agent seize property linked to businessman Roman Serrano. For a heartbeat, silence. Then Serrano lunged, grabbing the pistol hidden under his desk. Lucian fired first. The shot cracked through the room. Serrano staggered back, the weapon clattering to the floor. He sank against the wall, clutching his shoulder. "It's over," Lucian said. Serrano laughed, blood on his teeth. "You think killing me fixes anything? There will always be another me." "Maybe," Lucian said, lowering his gun. "But there won't be you." He turned away, but Serrano raised the pistol again, hand shaking. "I didn't think I moved." Shoved Lucian aside just as the second shot fired. The bullet grazed my arm, burning like fire. Lucian spun, his second shot ending it. Serrano fell, eyes wide, gone before he hit the ground. Lucian caught me as I swayed. "You're hit." "It's fine," I said through clenched teeth. "Just a scratch." "Don't you dare say that," he snapped, ripping his jacket to wrap around my arm. "You could have been." "I'm not," I said. "You're welcome." He looked at me, and for a moment the mask broke completely. "You're insane. Maybe I learned from you." He laughed once, shakily, and pressed his forehead against mine. "Remind me never to underestimate you again." Outside, the sirens were getting louder. Elena's voice crackled in his earpiece. "It's done. The feds are here. Get out before they arrive." Lucian helped me to my feet. We slipped out through the side door into the rain. The docks were alive with flashing lights and shouting officers. We ducked into a waiting car just as the police swarmed the scene. As the car sped away, I leaned back, exhausted. Lucian held my hand tightly, his thumb brushing against the bandage on my arm. "You saved my life," he said. "Now we're even." He shook his head. "No. I owe you more than I can ever pay." "Then stop paying and start living," I murmured. He looked at me for a long time, the faintest smile touching his lips. "You sound like her," he said softly. "Clara." He nodded. "She used to say things like that. Made me believe the world could be simple again." I squeezed his hand. "It still can be. You just have to let it." The rain eased as we reached the city. The sky was beginning to lighten, streaks of pink cutting through the gray. For the first time in months, Lucian looked like he could breathe. Back at the penthouse, Elena was waiting with medical supplies and a rare, relieved smile. "It's over," she said. "Serrano's empire is collapsing. The FBI's taking full credit." Lucian glanced at me. "Good. Let them." When Elena left, the silence that followed felt different. Calm, heavy with everything unspoken. Lucian turned to me. "You should rest." "So should you." "I will," he said. Then after a pause, "You know this changes everything." I met his eyes. "Good. I'm tired of pretending it doesn't." For the first time he didn't look away. The walls between us, made of fear, control, grief, had cracked. We both knew something real had started to grow in the space between. As I drifted to sleep later, the sound of rain fading beyond the glass, I felt his hand resting lightly over mine. Outside, the city that had once broken me was waking up again, clean and new. And for the first time I believed that maybe we could wake up with it. 2 days after Serrano's fall, the penthouse felt like a different place. The air was no longer thick with tension or secrets. It was heavy with silence. Lucian spent most of his time in his study, behind closed doors. Calls came and went. Associates visited briefly, murmured thanks, and disappeared again. On paper he'd won. But he didn't look like a man who'd won anything. I could hear him pacing sometimes, his voice low, sharp when he spoke on the phone. I said dissolve everything. No traces. No questions. Then quiet. Then the sound of glass shattering against a wall. Elena told me he'd started closing down half his operations. He wants out, she said one morning, setting down her coffee cup. He thinks if he burns it all to the ground, maybe he can start over. Isn't that good? Yes. She studied me. Lucien doesn't know how to live outside control. Without it, he unravels. That night, when I finally gathered the courage to enter his study, the place looked wrecked. Papers scattered, a half-empty glass of whiskey on the desk, the window open to cold air. Lucien stood by the glass, staring at the city lights. He didn't turn when I spoke. You haven't eaten all day. I'm not hungry. You haven't slept either. Sleep doesn't change anything. I stepped closer. It changes you. Finally he turned. His face looked tired, his eyes shadowed. You shouldn't be here, Isabella. This is my home too, remember? He shook his head. No. It's a temporary contract. 6 months. We both agreed. Froze. Is that what this is about? The contract. He exhaled slowly. You deserve something better than this mess. You should take the money and walk away while you still can. Walk away, I repeated softly. After everything we've survived. He looked at me then, the hardness in his eyes cracking just slightly. You almost died because of me. And I'm alive because of you. He slammed his hand against the window frame. Don't you see? That's the problem. Everyone who gets close to me pays the price. You can't keep punishing yourself forever, I said. He laughed bitterly. It's the only thing I'm good at. I took a step closer until we were inches apart. You're good at protecting people. You're good at leading. You're good at pretending you don't care when you do. His voice dropped. Stop, Isabella. No, I whispered. Because you're not the only one who lost something. He looked at me, searching for something to say, but nothing came. You want me to leave? Yes. Yes. His voice cracked. I nodded slowly, feeling the sting behind my eyes. Then say it like you mean it. He met my gaze and forced the words out. Leave. For a moment we just stood there, the city between us like a silent witness. Then I turned and walked out. By the next morning I was gone. Elena arranged a quiet exit. No cameras, no questions. I took nothing from the penthouse except my sketchbook. The apartment I rented downtown was small, half-furnished, but it was mine. The silence there felt different. Peaceful, not heavy. I started drawing again, not for clients or contracts but for myself. News spread quickly that Lucien Verezzi had sold off several companies and was retiring from the public eye. No one knew where he was. Maybe that was the point. A month passed before I saw him again. It was at an architecture exhibition at the Metropolitan Hall, where one of my projects, a redesign of a community center, had been selected for display. I was talking with a few journalists when I felt that familiar weight of a gaze. Turned. Lucien stood near the entrance, wearing a simple black suit, no tie, looking utterly out of place among the bright lights and smiling faces. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then he walked toward me. Congratulations, he said quietly. Thank you. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. I didn't know you were showing here. I didn't know you'd care. His eyes softened. I always cared. I didn't respond. The silence between us said enough. He glanced around the room at the displays. You built something beautiful. I'm trying. His smile was faint but real. You're succeeding. Before I could say anything else, someone called my name from across the hall. I turned briefly, and when I looked back, he was gone. Later that night, when the lights dimmed and the crowds disappeared, I found an envelope tucked inside my bag. No name. Just a single line written in Lucien's handwriting. If you ever decide to stop running, you know where to find me. I didn't know what hurt more, the hope that rose in my chest or the fear of believing it. 2 months later, the sky above Manhattan was clear for the first time in weeks. I'd built something close to a normal life. Morning coffee, clients who respected me, quiet nights sketching until dawn. I told myself I was fine, strong, independent. But every time the doorbell rang or my phone buzzed with an unknown number, part of me hoped it was him. Never was, until it was. A sleek black car pulled up outside my building late one afternoon. The driver handed me an envelope. Inside, a formal invitation. Lucien Verezzi requests your presence at the Verezzi Foundation headquarters. 7 p.m. No explanation. Every instinct told me not to go. I went anyway. The headquarters looked different now. Cleaner, lighter, stripped of its old shadows. The guards nodded politely as I entered, leading me to the top floor. Lucien was waiting in his office. He looked different. No armor, no edge. His hair slightly longer. His shirt sleeves rolled up. He smiled, a real one this time. Thank you for coming. I almost didn't. I know, he said. But I'm glad you did. I crossed my arms. Why am I here? He gestured to the table. On it lay a thin stack of papers. Our marriage documents, a pen, and an envelope sealed with wax. The divorce papers, he said simply. For a moment I couldn't breathe. So this is really how it ends. He nodded slowly. The contract expired last week. I wanted to do this in person. Picked up the pen. Fine. But before I could sign, he said, wait. He reached into his pocket and set something beside the papers. A ring. Small, elegant, simple gold. Not the one he'd given me months ago. New one. What's this? Yes. Choice, he said softly. If you sign, we end what we started. Cleanly, legally. No more ties. But if you don't, he met my eyes. Then maybe we start something new. Without contracts this time. I stared at the ring, my throat tightening. Why now? Because for the first time in my life, I don't want control, he said. I just want you. I felt my defenses crumble, the months of distance collapsing in a heartbeat. I don't know if I can trust this, I whispered. He nodded. Then don't. Just trust yourself. The room was quiet except for the sound of my heartbeat. I set down the pen, took a deep breath and said, show me it's real. He stepped closer. His hand brushed mine, warm and steady. It's real. I looked into his eyes, saw no walls, no masks. Just the man beneath the power, raw and human. I don't want revenge anymore, I said. I just want peace. Then we'll build it together. I smiled through tears. Architect and builder. Seems fair. He laughed quietly. Seems perfect. I slid the papers aside and picked up the ring. You're sure about this? He nodded once. More sure than anything. So I slipped it onto my finger. No contract. No cameras. Just us. That night, we stood on the balcony of his penthouse. The city stretching endlessly below. It looked the same, but everything had changed. He poured 2 glasses of wine, handed me one and said, I don't have much to offer besides this view and a promise. What promise? That I won't disappear again. Smiled. You already did once. And you still came back. Maybe I'm insane. Maybe, he said softly, brushing a strand of hair from my face. But you're mine now. No contracts. Just truth. For a long time we said nothing. The wind carried the hum of the city, the sound of life continuing. He took my hand and pressed a kiss to my palm. To new beginnings. I raised my glass. To finally choosing each other. As the night deepened, I leaned against him. The city lights flickering like stars below us. The world that had once humiliated me now glittered at my feet. I wasn't the broken woman Nathan Cross had abandoned. I wasn't the contract bride who hid behind another man's name. I was Isabella Hart, architect, survivor, and finally the designer of my own future. And when Lucien whispered, "Welcome home," I believed him. The invitation arrived printed on ivory paper, sealed with gold foil. Fiancé and Heart Architectural Foundation Gala. Celebrating the restoration of the Aurelia Hotel. The same hotel where my life had fallen apart a year ago. I read the words twice, my fingers trembling slightly. The Aurelia Hotel, the site of my public humiliation, the place Nathan Cross had ended our engagement in front of the world. Now Lucien had bought it, restored it, and turned it into a charity centerpiece. He'd done it quietly without telling me. When I walked into the penthouse that evening, he was standing by the window, hands in his pockets, the skyline reflecting in the glass. "You bought the Aurelia," I said. He turned. "Technically the foundation did. But yes." "Why?" "Because symbols matter," he said simply. "That building took something from you. It's time you take it back." I stared at him. "You planned this all along." He smiled faintly. "Maybe." I felt a rush of emotion. Fear, pride, disbelief. "You're impossible." "So you've told me," he said. "The event's in 2 weeks. You'll host it." "Me?" "You designed the new ballroom," he said. "You should be the one to show it to the world." Took me a moment to find my voice. "Lucien, people will remember what happened there. Then give them something else to remember." 2 weeks later, the hotel glittered under new chandeliers and fresh marble. Cameras flashed outside, but this time the attention didn't make me shrink. It fueled me. The red carpet, once the stage of my humiliation, was now mine to command. Reporters called my name, their voices tumbling over one another. "Mrs. Fiancé, how does it feel to be back?" Smiled. "Better than ever." Lucien met me at the entrance, dressed in a dark tuxedo that fit him like a secret. When he offered his hand, the flash of gold on my ring caught the light. The murmurs from the crowd rose higher. He whispered, "Ready." "I was born ready," I said, slipping my arm through his. Inside, the ballroom was alive with music and laughter. Politicians, business magnates, artists, all gathered beneath the crystal dome I had redesigned. The ceiling shimmered like starlight, every beam carefully aligned to reflect the chandeliers below. It was exactly as I'd imagined, beauty born from pain. Halfway through the evening, Lucien and I took the stage together. He spoke first, his voice steady and proud. "This building once represented everything wrong with power, greed, vanity, and cruelty. Tonight it stands for creation, collaboration, and hope. None of this would exist without Isabella Hart, whose vision rebuilt these walls." Applause thundered. My throat tightened. When he handed me the microphone, his eyes held mine, a silent promise that this time I wasn't alone. He spoke simply. "A year ago, I left this room broken. Tonight, I stand here not as someone's fiancé, not as someone's mistake, but as the architect of something new. The past doesn't define us. It reminds us how far we've come." The crowd erupted again. I saw flashes of phones, reporters scribbling notes, and among the faces, one that made my heart stop. Nathan Cross. He stood near the back, expression unreadable, Charlotte nowhere in sight. For a moment the noise faded, and the memories came rushing back. His voice, the cameras, the humiliation. But this time I didn't flinch. After the speech, while guests mingled, Nathan approached. "Isabella," he said quietly. "Turn calm." "Nathan, you look incredible." "I know." He smiled weakly. "You've changed." "So have you," I said. "Though I can't tell if it's growth or regret." He glanced toward Lucien across the room. "You really married him." "I really did." "Why?" he asked. "After everything, he's dangerous." I tilted my head. "You call him dangerous because he's powerful. You called me reckless because I was ambitious. Maybe we just scare weak men." He flinched, then said, "I came to apologize." "For what? Embarrassing me or underestimating me?" "Both," he admitted. "I didn't think you'd recover." "I didn't," I said softly. "I rebuilt." Nathan looked away. "You won't hear from me again." I know, I replied. Goodbye, Nathan. When he walked out of the ballroom, I felt the last thread of my old life snap cleanly. I exhaled, lighter than I'd felt in years. Lucien appeared beside me, sliding his hand into mine. You handled that well. It was easy, I said. He's just a ghost. He smiled. Then let's dance among the living. The orchestra began to play, and he led me to the center of the floor. The guests stepped back, forming a circle. The spotlight found us warm and bright. You realize, I whispered, this is exactly how the night began last time. Yes, he said, pulling me close. But this time you end it. We moved together easily. My dress brushed against his legs, the music soft and slow. Around us, applause swelled, champagne glasses clinked, laughter rose. The room shimmered with light and life. When the song ended, he kissed my hand, and the room exploded in cheers. The humiliation that had once defined me had turned into triumph. The woman who had once been left behind was now leading beside the man she'd chosen freely. Later, when the last guests left and the lights dimmed, Lucien and I stood alone in the ballroom. He whispered, "You did it." "No," I said, smiling. "We did." He brushed his thumb across my cheek, eyes soft. "I love you, Isabella." The words were quiet but certain, the kind of truth that didn't need proof. "I love you too," I said. "But next time you buy a hotel, tell me first." He laughed, a sound I hadn't heard in months, rich and unguarded. "Deal." 6 months later, spring returned to New York. The city's rhythm matched ours. Fast, unpredictable, full of life. The papers called us the power couple who redefined empire. Verezzi and Hart Architectural Foundation had become a symbol of rebuilding, supporting sustainable housing and young architects. For the first time, Lucien's name stood for creation instead of control. I'd expected him to miss the chaos of his old life, but he didn't. He still worked long hours, but his world had changed. He smiled more. He took mornings off to walk with me by the river. And sometimes, when he thought I wasn't looking, he watched me sketch with quiet pride. One morning, while we reviewed blueprints for a new community center, he said, "You've changed the company." "No," I said. "We changed it." He traced a finger along one of my designs. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if that night at the Aurelia never happened?" "All the time," I said. "And then I realize I wouldn't have met you." He smiled faintly. "I still think about Clara sometimes." "I know," I said gently. "And that's okay. She made you who you are. You don't have to forget her to love again." He looked at me, eyes soft with gratitude. "You make peace sound possible." "It is," I said. "You just have to keep choosing it." By summer, the foundation's success drew international attention. We traveled to Italy for a charity project, a coastal restoration near Amalfi. The villa overlooking the sea became our temporary home. Every evening we sat on the terrace, watching the sun drop into the water, the horizon melting into gold. Lucien seemed at peace here, lighter. "This place suits you," I told him one night. He smiled. "Maybe it's the company." I leaned on the railing beside him. "You know, I used to think revenge was the only thing that could make me feel alive again. But now," he prompted. "Now I think creation is stronger than destruction." He nodded. "You built more than buildings, Isabella. You built a life worth keeping." I looked out at the sea, the waves catching the fading light. "So did you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. My breath caught. "Lucien." He opened it. Inside was another ring, platinum this time, engraved with a single word inside. "Semper, always." He said softly, "We married once for business, once for choice. This time I want forever." Tears blurred my vision. "You already have it." He slipped the ring onto my finger and kissed me. The sound of the waves and his heartbeat blended together, steady and sure. Weeks later, we returned to New York for the foundation's anniversary gala. The Aurelia shimmered again, its walls alive with music and laughter. The woman in the red dress who had once walked out humiliated now walked in crowned in grace. Reporters asked for interviews, but I kept my words simple. "This isn't a story about power or revenge," I said. "It's about rebuilding what was broken and believing that love can survive anything." Lucien watched from across the room, his gaze warm and proud. When the crowd grew too loud, he crossed to me, slipped an arm around my waist and whispered, "Let's disappear." We slipped out to the balcony overlooking the city. The skyline glittered below, the towers, the bridges, the endless pulse of life we'd both fought so hard to protect. He looked at me. "Do you ever regret any of it?" I thought for a moment. "No. Every mistake brought me here." He nodded slowly. "Then maybe the worst nights are just the first chapters of better stories." Smiled. "Spoken like a man who finally believes in happy endings." "Only because you designed mine," he said. The orchestra swelled behind us, the same waltz that had once marked the beginning of my downfall. Lucien took my hand. "One last dance, Mrs. Verezzi." I laughed softly. "Always." We danced beneath the night sky, the city glittering below, every step a reminder of how far we'd come, from humiliation to triumph, from pain to peace. When the song ended, he pulled me close, his voice a whisper against my hair. "You rebuilt me." "No," I said. "You rebuilt yourself. I just handed you the tools." He smiled. "Then together we'll keep building." As the lights of New York shimmered like constellations, I knew we finally had everything we'd fought for. Not power, not revenge, but something rarer. Freedom. And love that had survived the fire. If you felt every word, every heartbeat, then stay with me. Subscribe, leave a comment about your favorite moment, and share this story with someone who loves a good redemption arc. Let's keep building worlds together.